will soon be upon us. I have seen it.
Vanessa.
Beasts will feed. Evil will overcome the earth. And all our days will come to an end.
Such music my master makes. There's a creature. He has been hunting me since the dawn of time.
You may be done with hell. It is not done with you. She needs us. We are coming to you, Vanessa.
He is very close. She's the only person who can stop all this.
What is all of this?
The end of days.
Too easy being monsters. Let's try to be human.
Donna?
Woo. I don't think that was a loud enough welcome. Can we get another one, please?
Thank you.
So this is season 3 of Penny Dreadful.
It is.
It is, which is so gothic and so beautiful and so stylized, and yet deals with so many issues of identity and our own inner demons and how we deal with them. Mm-hmm. So what can you say about this season without giving it all away?
Well, this season's kind of a departure for Penny Dreadful. We moved to, the whole show's been set in London, basically, since its inception, and now we're taking it to the American West, we're taking it to Africa, we're taking it to the Arctic, and my character has to is forced into dealing with his past, which has been something that's been obviously haunting him for the last 2 seasons. And I think, in my opinion, this is the most mature of the 3 seasons. I think it looks spectacular. I mean, you can kind of get a sense of it there. The production value is just fantastic on this show, and this year it kind of steps up even another notch. And we have some new actors. Brian Cox is playing my father, who's fantastic. Wes Studi is playing kind of a sort of a father figure to me. We have Patti LuPone's back, a couple other people. Woo, Patti!
And she's back as a new character, actually.
She's back as a new character. She was so great last year that John Logan brought her back as another character.
So we can reveal she's Vanessa's therapist.
Yes.
Of sorts, whatever you want to call it at that time.
Yeah.
Vanessa is played by Ava Green, who is tremendous.
Yeah, Ava's fantastic.
And the season opens with Ethan on a train. So would you care to elaborate on where his journey takes him in as much as you can?
Well, last year, this character named Inspector Rusk, who's played by Doug Hodge, who is an English actor but lives in New York. He's a fantastic actor. I turned myself in to Inspector Rusk in order to be, I think, hung like on the spot that day to kind of alleviate every one of my curse. And the curse is Ethan's a werewolf, in case you haven't seen it, my characters. And he feels like it's his fault, this lycanthropy. And so he's trying to kill himself and do it in the correct manner, but Rusk instead sends him back to America, and that's why this season starts with him on a train. There's a lot to be dealt with back in the States that he was running away from the very beginning of this show. So we'll get to know Ethan a lot more over the course of this series.
You've said in the past how difficult, or I shouldn't say difficult, challenging it was for you to play someone who had such a big secret that he couldn't reveal. Now that the secret is out, that he's a werewolf, how has your approach to playing him changed?
He still is dealing with it. He only figures out that he's a werewolf about 2/3 of the way through the second season. And he has his suspicions about what he is, but he didn't necessarily know that it was werewolfism, you know. So the way that I've played him hasn't changed at all, really. It's just what I'm able to talk about, like right now, that's changed.
What
I can
surprised
say werewolf.
Werewolf. That he's a werewolf. Are you going to howl for us now?
No, I'm going to leave that to you, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to collect different people's howls to see which one will work best for the character. Because I don't howl a lot on the show. But if you would howl for me, that'd be... Come on.
I double dog dare you.
I thought you were going to do
first.
it. You were so close to doing it. I
was
saw
so
you
like,
thinking about it.
I was like, ooh.
You were so close.
Ooh, but then this will live forever. It will haunt me.
It will.
To the end of days.
Yep, in perpetuity.
What? From the time you signed on to now, what has surprised you the most about Ethan?
Well, the thing about working on TV, which I've not done since I was 18 years old, is that it's kind of a more organic process than working on a film, where in a film you have a beginning, middle, and end. You know where the character's going to go, you know how it's going to develop, and you know what you want to do the whole time. With Ethan, we've sort of developed characteristics that have then been built into the show, which has been fun. I mean, so that is a surprise in itself. Watching the writing develop as we develop our characters. But the most surprising thing about Ethan that I think popped out of the first season was his sort of capacity for spiritualism that was not written into the first few episodes. And it became this sort of Catholic, iconography-driven religion that he may have in his past. And that was something that we didn't quite expect from Ethan. And it just sort of grew as the season went on, the first season went on. He performs an exorcism and everything, so, yeah.
And he has a pretty tempestuous relationship with Vanessa, so how do you see that evolving? Or not?
Tease. Yeah, I think that, I mean, in this series, I keep calling it a series because I've been living in London. It's a season. Okay, so in this season, we'll see Ethan on a far-flung kind of part of the world from Vanessa, but they're still drawn to each other psychically. So there will be some development, but physically they're not near each other for most of the season. So it's difficult. It was very smart of John Logan to separate them, because at the end of last season you kind of got a sense that they had to either be together or not and decide. And so by sending them into different parts of the world, we're allowed to kind of keep that up. That should they, would they, will they? The moonlighting aspect.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Push and pull that keeps the
moonlighting.
secret.
What am I, like 100 years old?
No, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
We're like the only ones, by the way, that get that reference. Seriously, I think.
So what's the modern equivalent of moonlighting?
Friends?
Friends
Maybe.
isn't modern.
I'm trying to think. Come on, people.
Well, they have to know what moonlighting is first, and they don't know what moonlighting is.
That's right.
So moonlighting was a show that Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd were in, and the whole thing was about will they or won't they get together, right?
Yes, and then
Yeah.
they eventually did. So.
And
yeah.
exactly.
Spoiler alert, they did.
Spoiler alert, they did.
Where do you see Ethan in season 4?
Probably in a much different place. I have to reveal so much if I was to say anything about that. I can't tell you much about what happens this season because it is really surprising, I think. It was surprising for me to read. And I assume that if the show comes back, it's going to evolve in a different manner. You know, it's been taking a lot of twists and turns, and it keeps growing. And I think it will have to expand in a different direction. Next year, that's such a vague answer. I don't know what to say. I can't
Well,
say.
you can't really say anything because
Exactly. So why'd you
otherwise
ask the
would-
question?
Because I thought maybe you would slip up and say something.
Oh yeah. Okay. You're being a journalist.
Exactly. Well, you said that this is the first series you've done since you were 18.
Yeah.
What about this spoke to you when you saw the first script?
To be able to work with John
Logan.
Logan and to be able to work with Sam Mendes, I mean, and Showtime was incredibly behind the project. They had given me a couple of different things to look at, and this was the one that really stuck out as having the most legs, in my opinion. Like, I thought there's a lot to mine here. It's a really interesting concept, and it's so well written that you could see it going on. It's better, I think, than the genre itself, in my opinion. And it's just kind of has, I don't know, it has real humanity. And I like the character. I like that there was not much known about him at the beginning, because that for me is exciting. And when I was taking on TV, I thought, how do I make this character capable of almost anything so that he remains interesting throughout, as opposed to kind of, if you peg somebody early on in a TV show, they become boring,
No, this guy, I mean, he's evolved tremendously, and the more you learn about him, the more fascinating he becomes. What element of him do you enjoy playing the most?
Well, he has a sort of dry wit, which I like, and
Which you also have, I might add.
thank you. And I just honestly, I really love the scenes I was able to do with Simon Russell Beale, who plays Lyle, and I like it when the show decides to go a little lighter, because it is such a dark show, and so to show a little levity every once in a while is surprising and fun for me.
And what's it like shooting? I know you guys shoot in Ireland, correct?
Ireland, yeah, Dublin.
What is it like shooting a show this, I don't want to say dark, because I don't think it's dark. I think it's more gothic.
Yeah.
Do you guys go out for beers every night to kind of shake it
Well,
off?
it's Dublin.
It is double, yeah. That's kind of a dumb, that question answers itself.
The beer is brought to us.
Oh. Do they have like a mandatory 4-hour beer break in the middle
Yes,
of the day?
you have to have a beer every 3-4 hours.
Or they
I think it
deport
is.
you.
Yeah, what?
Or they deport you?
They deport you? No, they just stop working. No, we have a strict no beer policy on set, but we don't. We go out occasionally, but we're so busy. It's kind of an intense 6 months, and then we shot the last third of the show down in Almeria in Spain, where they shot the spaghetti westerns, where they shot like the Clint Eastwood, the old Sergio Leone westerns, and it was fun. It was fun to be down there shooting a sort of western style show, and yeah, I mean, Dublin's great, and we do have fun, but it's contained because we're so busy.
You just have to bang out the episodes and just be done.
Yeah.
Now, you also have a bunch of movies, both in the can and coming out. Mm-hmm. I know that you've always been incredibly picky about what you've worked on, and you've been very vocal about that. So how do you choose what you do during your hiatus?
Well, this most recent role that I just finished yesterday, just got back to New York yesterday, was a true story about this guy named Eric Lamarck, who was up in Mammoth Mountain in Northern California in 2004, was snowboarding, went off the backside, got caught in a really severe storm that lasted for 2 days, and then had to go find water because he was dying of thirst, and because you can't drink snow, as you might know, it's bad for you. It actually doesn't. It dehydrates you. And so when he found water, he followed the creek in the wrong direction. Anyway, so he was out there for 8 days and ended up surviving, but lost both of his legs. Actually, had to eat part of his own leg to survive. And when a role like that comes along, I mean, it's hard not to do it, because it is such a challenge and responsibility. And so that was easy to choose. And then I'm going on to shoot something else. I actually leave tonight to go shoot a film with an artist who I really respect named Lech Majewski, who only shoots a film every like 10, 15 years. And his movies are just incredibly thoughtful and very complex and very cool. And so John Malkovich and Charlotte Rampling and myself are going to go make that. And I just try and choose things that are going to be interesting for me to be a part of. And I've been lucky enough to be able to do that for a long time now. Just turned around and suddenly it's been doing this for 20 years. It's insane.
Well, but you also, I think, I mean, from talking to you before, you're very thoughtful about your career. And I remember you saying that you pulled back consciously when you felt yourself becoming too famous.
Yeah, too famous was just too famous for me, you know? Some people have no problem with tons of fame. At that particular point in my life, I was 21 years old, and I felt like I hadn't developed fully as an adult and really wanted to sort of explore my options and try other things. I tried directing a little bit, writing, producing, even tried to get back into visual arts a little bit. Just sort of, you know, wanted to explore who I am. And it was hard to do with that intense focus on me. So it was too much for me at the time. Now for me, it's a wonderful career. You know, like I love being able to work with people that I can work with. And I have always had respect for the craft and a lot of people who I've learned from over the years, and actually being on film, just enjoying being on the film sets, and the respect for all the people that I'm working with. But at that particular moment, I needed a break, you know? It just had to be that way.
What was your aha moment when you realized that you had to pull back?
Well, I mean, there were some pretty intense moments with photographers and things like that that made me realize that, and some stalkers and things like that kind of got to a point where I just wasn't sure if I could function the way I wanted to, and so I decided to go back to Minnesota, where I knew everyone, or the people that I knew best were, and they could look out for me and treat me the way that I've always been treated, as opposed to this new sort of commodity that I've become. Yeah, I don't know, you know, when you have to ride in the trunk of a car in order to escape, you know, to escape paparazzi and stuff like that for, you know, to get anywhere for a couple of weeks while you're in LA, it kind of gets a little nuts, you know? So
that's more than a little nuts. That actually makes Penny Dreadful seem like completely realistic by comparison.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can either give into it. Some people do, and just, you know, they're just totally available all the time, and or you can kind of fight it. And I definitely fought it. It's just my nature.
And I also find it incredibly interesting that a lot of actors, it's very hard to accept them in certain roles because you know so much about them in their real life. And I feel like with you, that's the exact opposite. Has that liberated you to play
Totally.
any assortment of roles?
I think so, because each director that takes me on for a reason that they've attributed to me. Like, seriously, every director I've worked with said, I want you to play this because I see you as this. And that wouldn't be possible if they knew who I was, because most of the time they're wrong, you know? They see me as something because of something I've done or whatever. But it's a character that I played, not necessarily who I am in my life. And that's a nice feeling, because then you have this, I don't know, yeah, you have much more leeway. Totally.
And you just also worked with James Franco?
Yeah, a couple times.
Times? So what was the most recent experience like for you?
It's great. James was directing, just kind of went and did a day or two on his new film, and I mean one of his 16 new films, and he's a very creative, very fun guy, and it's always fun to work with a contemporary who has that amount of self-belief and intensity and focus. I mean, he's constantly working and trying new things. I mean, that's inspiring to be around. I think that there are a number of young actors that I'm calling us young. We're not young anymore.
We're totally young.
Yeah, we're so young. God.
Don't you dare practice ageism on this stage.
Yeah, I'm gonna crack right now. Have a breakdown. No, it's fun to work with contemporaries who are trying new things. Those are the people I respect most. So James is obviously trying new things all the time.
Who's at the top of your list to work with?
Oh, of anybody?
Of anybody. If you could literally right now call them up and get a movie in the
I almost had an opportunity to work. I met with, and there was a project that he was thinking about doing that he didn't even end up being associated with in the end. But I really respect this guy very much. Is Julian Schnabel. And so I've seen him around quite a bit since, and just have always thought that it would be a lot of fun to work with him. But there are so many great directors out there that I would love to work with. It's hard to even say. That just popped into my mind because actually Lech Majewski, who's directing the next film I just told you about, he wrote Basquiat and was going to direct it, but then his friend Julian directed it. And so it's this sort of, that popped into my mind. But there are a lot of great directors out there that I would love to work with.
And back to Penny Dreadful
Yeah.
for a second. When you were saying earlier
Let's talk about this thing that I'm promoting.
Why not? Let's do it, because it is damn good. Yeah. When you said that every director hires you for a very specific reason and a vision that they have for you, what did John Logan tell you when he hired you?
Well, John had this idea that I was a lot more dashing than I am, I think. You know what I mean? Like,
you're totally dashing.
No, not at all. I don't think so. Anyway, he thought that I could portray that sort of aspect of Ethan that he had written at the very beginning, that this guy's like a ladies' man, and he seems to have not a care in the world at the beginning of that first episode, written on the page. And I came in with the opposite interpretation. And I said, actually, I think that Ethan just wants to kill himself, but he can't bring himself to do it because he just feels like his life is completely lost to him. He's not really living the life that he'd like to live. He's obviously running away from something. What's he running away from? And we went on and on and on. And so John hired me for something that I didn't do. And that was, play this sort of like charismatic, sort of like this guy kind of stumbles into this situation. I was like, no, this guy's got real demons himself that he feels guilty about, and that's what's going to drive him emotionally through this whole thing. And it really, I think it worked out well.
What was John Logan's reaction when he thinks you're going to come in being like,
he loved it.
Sure. He loved it?
He loved the idea when I said to him, I think this is the day that I think if Ethan could, he would have killed himself this day and any day, until this experience of meeting these people in this bizarre circumstance actually saves his life. Gives him something to believe in, gives him something to worry about in Vanessa, gives him a reason to be.
Do you walk into every movie, audition, meeting, what have you, with a very specific idea of how you want the character to be?
Yes and no. I mean, sometimes I have, it just comes to me exactly how I would like something to be, and then over the course of rehearsals and things like that, I can come to a different understanding if the director wants it. Sometimes I really want the director to tell me what they want first. This with Eric Lamarck, who I just played, I really had a sense of how I thought he would have to behave in this film in order for the film to make sense. Not necessarily, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to mimic or sort of do a characterization based on Eric himself and how he is. I just wanted to base it on some aspects of his story so that it made sense within the context. And I had a very clear idea of what I wanted to do there. But on the next film, it's called Valley of the Gods, I want Lech to sort of tell me, because it's so, he didn't even write, the script is just a series of drawings, actually. And they have inscriptions at the bottom. There are some of the lines, but I don't think all the lines are there. I want him to tell me what he wants from this character, because it's so ingrained, and he's been working on it for years and years and years, and I think he has a very specific sense of what he wants. So for me, it's going to be fun to be able to fulfill that for him. But it totally depends on the project.
Well, you seem to be, before we turn it over to the audience, you seem to be in a complete professional sweet spot right now, because looking at what you've done versus what you have coming up, you're not hamstrung by any genres.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Which is really nice to see. And I assume that was your
That was
goal
always my
going
intention,
in.
yeah. I always hoped. The one thing I would like to do more of is comedy. Seriously, like, it's just, I did a drunk history last year, and it was it was like the best experience. It was so much fun. And I would love to be able to do a little bit more of that if I get a chance.
Well, we'll put it out there.
Yeah, okay.
And hopefully the movie gods will be listening. And let's turn it to the audience, please.
We're going to take our first question from an online viewer. So Cindy would like to know, how was it to film in Spain? Did you get to explore it all when you weren't shooting?
Yeah, we were filming the end of Penny Dreadful in Almeria, like I said before, which is outside of Malaga, kind of southern coast of Spain. And yeah, I had very little time to explore, but when I did, I went down to Malaga and watched Barcelona versus Malaga soccer match, and got to see Messi score a goal, which maybe means nothing to you guys because
it means a lot to me.
we're American, but
He's one of the greatest players
Ever.
ever.
and he gave some fan ran on the field afterwards, some kid just evaded everybody, like one of those guys, and got over to him, and Messi gave him his jersey, and I was like, oh, this guy's the greatest.
You're like, I should have done that.
Yeah. This guy was attacking him, and he's like, here, have my jersey. But most of the time we were filming while we were down there because it's expensive to go on location for a show that's been based entirely in one place and then to bring 200 crew members somewhere else. So they just had us working. But I've been to Spain many times and over the course of my career, and I love it. Spent a lot of time in Barcelona. Really like that.
Hey Josh, how's it going?
Good. Oh, hey. Sorry, I was looking over here.
So I guess we've entered an age of television where it's getting much more recognition as films. Like for example, Penny Dreadful, it often feels cinematic at times. Mm-hmm. So can you put your what are your thoughts on that?
Well, this particular show, I can't speak for other ones, but this particular show was made by people that had only made film before. Sam Mendes produced it, John Logan produces and writes it. I had done one TV show when I was 18 years old, but have mostly worked in film. Timothy Dalton, I don't think has done any other TV. Ava had done one show before, but mostly we'd all come from film, and our first director, Juan Bayona, who set the look of the piece, wanted it to be incredibly filmic, as did everybody else, and he's only done film. So I think we'd all just sort of looked at it as this sort of long format film experience, and none of us, because we'd never done TV before, episodic TV, I don't think any of us thought it was going to come back for another season, you know what I mean? We thought of it as this sort of 8-hour experiment, and it did. And so now we're left sort of with that high standard of technical. God, I don't know what's the next word I'm supposed to say. It's the technical is the technical level of this show is very high. So we've left it with that standard. So we've got to continue up to that. And I think this series is even more. This season is even more beautiful than the last 2 seasons. It's just great camera department, great. Costumes and fantastic sets. It's just crazy, isn't it? So you get a sense that it is a lot of quality for your dollar.
Next question, please.
Hi, Josh.
Hey.
I'm over here.
There you are. Hey.
So the supernatural genre is very vast, and people have a lot of different takes on how they see the supernatural. If you could be a character in any other supernatural series, what would it be?
Like a supernatural series that exists, or can I make one up?
You can make it up.
God, that's a big question. I've always been drawn to sort of more psychological and suspense sort of stuff when it comes to supernatural, and I've always been drawn to space. I don't know what it was growing up. I was born on July 21st. Moon landing was on July 20th, and I always thought if I was Australian, it would have been July 21st. So I always thought, technically, and they were on the other side of the world when they landed. They had to relay it, so it was actually July 21st. I don't care what people say, because it was over Australia, it wasn't over the US. So I've always had this sort of connection to space. I've always been obsessed with space because I could just reason myself into it. And so, I don't know, I think something sci-fi, supernatural in space.
Maybe Spaceballs. What?
Can we do Spaceballs Part 2?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, that way you get comedy, space, and the supernatural.
And balls.
Yeah, come on now. Last question, please.
Hello. Hi, Josh.
Hi.
Good to see you here. You look very nice today.
Thank you. As do you.
Thank you. Oh, God. I wanted to know, since you're from Minneapolis, what are your thoughts on Prince, and has he had any effect on your career in any way?
he had a major influence on my early life for sure. I mean, he was such a huge star from my hometown that, I mean, he affected everything in the Twin Cities. And Prince was, you know, the Prince of Minneapolis. He had this sort of, he brought a lot of attention to Minneapolis as well, as far as music goes. And so when I was a kid, I was obviously loved him. And something about, I don't know, that first Batman movie, he did the soundtrack for the Batman movie and stuff like that, and I'd been a fan of his already, but that just put me over the edge. He was like the coolest thing ever. As far as my career goes, I mean, like any artist that's doing exactly what they feel that they should do and looking out for their own interests and actually pursuing something outside of the box and not thinking just within the context of what's been done, but trying to do something new has always been an inspiration to me, and he fits in that category 100%. I've always admired him for that. And I was able, luckily, I'm just sort of bizarrely able to meet him one time and saw his concerts a couple times, but he was a really gracious guy, so I respect him a lot for that too. And from what I've heard since he died, that he was incredibly charitable and had a lot of good things going on that he didn't even talk about, which I find to be, in my opinion, the mark of somebody really great, someone that doesn't trumpet their own, I don't know, successes or like the things that they've done that are, you know, for other people. And I don't know. I have an enormous amount of respect for him. So it's very sad to hear about him.
Well, thank you very much. Penny Dreadful is back May 1st on Showtime for season 3. Thank you for being here, Josh.
Thank you.